Okay, so today I want to look at the Jasper.ai writing assistant. You can use it to come up with some quick outlines for your blog article and some cool ideas you might otherwise not have thought of. So I've got 2 recipes, and a recipe is like a set of rules that I've predefined for different types of blog posts, and click on Run. Now, the powerful thing of Jasper.ai is that you can use a few commands. You can tell it what it needs to do, like write a content brief, write a few headlines. And the other powerful thing is that you can integrate it with SurferSEO, and that's a tool that we use to check if we've got all of the important topics in there that other people are writing about that rank highly for these types of articles. Today I want to write about: is high tide or low tide better for skimboarding? So it's really specific. So the goal with this tool is to quickly come up with some H2 and H3 headings. So you have the complete structure of your post, and then you can go in and write the article, the subject of the post. You can put it in here. And then I also like to immediately put that everywhere when it says topic. So you don't have to go back in and copy and paste the title every time. I also like to go into the SEO mode here, paste in the keyword, and then create content editor. And this will create a content editor just like it would in SurferSEO itself. So it does take a little bit of time, but that's okay. What I like to do is then create this one and then immediately go back to the focus mode, which is where you can write the article. Now the first line is to create like a content brief, and normally you would write a content brief for a writer to say, okay, you should write an article about this topic and you should include this and this. And in this case, you can write this content brief to put it in the content description brief right here. And when using this, you're actually telling Jasper what it should write about. To select a complete sentence, I'd like to triple click on it. And then when you use Command, Shift and Enter, it will execute that command. And it will start writing like the beginning of this content brief. So it is content brief, and for some reason it write a content brief. And when you change it to write a blog post, so now Jasper has like a bit of a starting point to base the next of his ideas on. The next thing I like to do is write a few headline ideas. Sometimes Jasper comes up with some creative solutions to incorporate into the title. The title is already pretty long, but sometimes you can use one of these as the title or maybe rewrite it a bit. So in this case, I just like to use the actual question that we're trying to answer. Now I make that an H1, that's the title of the post. And then I can use this to write a few ADA blog post introductions. I like ADA or PASS as a blog post structure the most. So after it's written the first part of the ADA blog post introduction, it stops here, and it stops pretty quick because the output length is set to medium, and it writes a longer piece of text when you set it to longer. I'd like to keep it on medium, and if I want some more text in here, then you can just use the command J. It also says it right here, to compose, to have it write some more text. So now we'll continue with the ADA blog post structure. So I actually already like the first intro here. So this might be a good one to use. What I also like to do is write a PASS blog post introduction. And again, Command, Shift and Enter, and it will write that introduction. Now when you're using Jasper.ai in this way, put 3 asterisks here. And that's because it prevents Jasper from seeing what's above the asterisks. Otherwise it will write based on what it can see above here, and then it will use this introduction to write his PASS introduction. And in this case I want him to come up with fresh ideas, so preventing him from seeing what's above here can help him come up with a completely new idea. So now we've got 2 introductions. I like this first sentence already. This intro might be good, but it might be nonsense, because Jasper knows quite a bit, but especially for very specific posts, it can get confused sometimes, and maybe confuse skimboarding with surfing. Now it will give an answer that's appropriate for surfing, but not for skimboarding. So we can leave it in. It's a pretty good intro, but as we write the entire article, we might find that it's not at all accurate, and we can remove this and write a specific part of the intro ourselves. Now, the other thing I like here is the Grammarly integration. So it shows you which sentences don't completely make sense. So what I like to do is just get the title and the introduction out of the way and then go straight into the H2s and H3s as an outline for this article. So the next thing is to write a blog outline for a blog post titled "Is High Tide or Low Tide Better for Skimboarding?" Now when you hit Command-Shift-Enter, it will try to come up with some topic ideas you can incorporate in this article to make it a complete answer to high tide or low tide. This is exactly why I sometimes use the asterisks. It's only regurgitating what is already on top for the intro. So when I delete this and maybe try some asterisks here, you always have to enter 3 asterisks and then it can't read what's above there. Then maybe try it again to see if it comes up with an outline for a blog post. Okay, so you have some usable things we can add. So these are things we can look into as headings. Of course, when you do your research, you might come up with some additional topics to use. Let's just take these and make them headings. So we've got a few topics that we can write on already. We also can try Jasper to write some H2 headlines for this blog post. Now again, the more broader a topic is, the easier it becomes for Jasper to come up with some ideas for the blog post. But it didn't write additional headlines for us, so let's just delete that. And the next thing we can do is make a list of reasons why high tide would be better or why low tide would be better for skimboarding. So in this case, we can copy it. We can use these for some topic ideas to look into. Okay, so the next thing that I like to do is go to the Surfer SEO and see if there are some topics in there that we definitely should write about as well, and we can incorporate them into our outline structure. So you can see that it's done now. You can click on that. The first thing that we can look at is the outline right here. You can have some questions here. So what tide is best for skimboarding? And you can actually copy this entire section and paste it into the article right here. The text generated over here is actually perfectly fine to use because Surfer SEO also has a AI writer that writes these texts, so you can leave that in there. Probably you want to upgrade this a bit, but it's a good building block for creating the outline of this article. It's the best beach. It's not really relevant for our article here. It's better to swim at high or low tide. Not really relevant for this article. Can you skimboard without waves? So that's maybe how to skimboard at low tide. There won't be many waves. So we can copy this, maybe put it here, and then make this an H3. Okay. And we also have the headings section right over here, which shows what headings other sites are using that are ranking for this topic. What are the best conditions for skimboarding is also interesting. It's a little bit more broad maybe than our topic, but it's still the conditions for high or low tide. So you can mention other conditions as well, I think. And we could close with that, with the best conditions. So those are the headings we can use. And then click back to guidelines. Maybe there's some topics in here that we can use as well. And otherwise you can use this to improve the article after you've written it. So you can make sure that some of these keywords are used in the article. For example, you could make sure the waves break is in there. And you can see now we have incorporated waves break, and then our Surfer SEO score will go up. So you can go back to the focus mode now. And we've got a bit of an outline for the article here. Remove the asterisks, and then you can start writing your article. Now, one last thing that I want to show you here is the power mode. One thing I like to use sometimes is explain it to a child, which is a way to make something that's pretty difficult to read, easier to read. And I'd like to output a 6th grade level and also hit generate AI content. And this is especially good for if you find like some text on Wikipedia about the topic. You can use a bit of content from Wikipedia and try explain it to a child to generate some ideas of how to make it simpler. So this can help you rewrite some content and to make it more readable for a blog post reader quickly. Some other cool things that are in here is like the feature to benefit. For example, if an Amazon product has a list of features, you can enter those in and it will make like a benefit for the reader. So what will the reader be able to use this product for instead of what the feature is? And so this can give you some ideas to how to write benefits, which is always good in a review type post. sometimes like to try engaging questions about a topic and then input like an audience. This could be like for beginners or for experienced chefs. This could generate ideas of additional things that you could answer. So is high or low tide better for skimboarding? That's a topic. Audience could be beginner skimboarders. Tone of voice like witty, and then click generate AI content, and we'll try to come up with some engaging questions that you might be able to answer. So most of these we already have in the article right here, but how do you know when it's the best time? Which tide is best for beginners? Well, these are pretty amazing actually. So the other two that is generated are not really that good. It doesn't help us out at all, but this one has some interesting ideas. So I think I'll like them over here. The benefits, you already had that, but how do you know? That's a good one. Which tide is best for beginners? Specific time of day. That's maybe when the high or low tide comes up. Which tide is best for skimboarding, and maybe the beginners one could be an H3 under that. Okay, so you can see there are quite a few different things that you can play around with and get some interesting ideas and use them as an outline for your blog post, and now you have things to write about. After you're done with writing the article, go into SEO mode. Make some last changes to make sure you have got your bases covered, and you mention important pieces in this article like low tide. It will mean shallow water. There are more tidal pools in there, so these are things that you definitely need to mention, but not all of these will be useful in a blog post like this. Like, you don't have to talk specifically about Laguna Beach, Dewey Beach, or Paradise Beach, or other beaches. That's not what this blog post is about, but gentle waves, shallow water, tidal pools, tide conditions. These are things that you can mention in the post to make sure Google knows that we've got the most complete article on this topic. So we should rank number one in the shortest amount of time. So you can just exit that, and it will be saved here right in the document section. So you can go back in and edit that, of course. Here at the recipes, I also have a review type post. You can also run this review post outline creator, and I've incorporated some of the things that I like in a review post in there. So again, here you can write a content brief about. Let's do best skimboard bags. So the title is best skimboard bags. Do the topic here. There's a few different things in here than in the Q&A post. So write a content brief. So let's put that in here. Again, write a review post or blog post. I don't know if that matters. And then we can remove this. Then write a few headline ideas. So you can use something like this. And make that an H1. Then again, we can use a ADA blog post, introduction. It stops here, but hit compose again. Then it will finish the ADA introduction. Oh, so it already has the 5 most important things. Could be cool to see where Jasper takes that after this. But let's go further with the introduction. Write a past blog post introduction. So you can see, look if you can use one of these introductions. It's good to get that out of the way so you can start writing on the actual content. I've put into brackets everything that isn't a command. So you should be, after the introduction, there should be a short summary of the absolute best product that we recommend in bold with the link to that product, of course. Then the table for the top recommended products. And after that, the buyer's guide. So in the buyer's guide, we can ask Jasper to write like some important features of skimboard bags that might be useful to use in the buyer's guide. So this is something Jasper can look into for you. And of course, whatever you find during your own research of the topic. Then what you can write about after all of the reviews is a bit about how to use the best skimboard bags. You can ask Jasper to make a list of how people use like skimboard bags and see what it can come up with. So it has a few ideas. You can hit compose and see if that has a few other ideas. So it has a few things that you can write about. And after you've written all of the content, you can use this last one to write a blog post conclusion about the above. So this will have Jasper use all of the text that you already have in there to create a final conclusion. It sometimes has some pretty good angles, or you can always write your own if it doesn't come up with something good. So this is how you use Jasper in conjunction with SurferSEO to come up with some good topics to talk about within a blog post article. And I know if you start using this, then you'll get faster and faster with it, and it can really help you and give you some interesting ideas to really make this the best article out there, so we can start ranking on number 1 on Google.